Every so often, I want to revisit the fundamentals of value creation. So the way I think about it is holistic value creation. Most people, when they hear the word value, they're thinking about money. How much money can I make? What can I produce in my company to generate profit, et cetera. But when I think about value creation and apply it in the world, it's holistic value creation, which includes material value, which we all understand, emotional energy value, which in my view, positive emotional energy is the scarcest commodity on the planet. Because as you've heard me say before, it literally supercharges everything else we do. It's the X factor for leaders and really for everyone. And then the third bucket, spiritual value creation, at its core, it's all about connectedness and relationships with family members, coworkers, suppliers, communities that we engage with, a higher power, whatever is important to each individual. And I would say that connectedness is incredibly important regardless of where it's important to each individual. So let's just touch on a for-profit example or approach to this, nonprofit approach, family approach as well. In the for-profit world, the way I think about it, it's profit, leadership, and relationships. So on the profit side, what are we doing to continually increase the value of the organization? And I think for every for-profit organization to be healthy, they have to continually be increasing the value of that organization and getting every single team member in that company to do the same and contribute to it. Incredibly important. It's healthy for so many reasons. Advancement opportunities for employees, job security, helps the company weather downturns, recessions, et cetera. So really important that they cultivate their material value creation. And when folks say that, hey, it can't be about the money, it's got to be about other things, literally 95% of the time when I get to kind of look under the covers at what they're doing, almost all of their decisions are about the money. And I feel like when they say the other things are most important, it comes off like virtue signaling to me. And there's so much business virtue signaling going on out there. And I think it's happening because if they say they're good and they're for good and they do good things, they believe more people will do business with them. But very few of them are actually fully doing those things. Now, there's some amazing leaders doing wonderful things in the world out there. I don't want to take anything away from those. It just seems like there's a high percentage of business virtue signaling so others will do business with them. And when it comes to leadership, this is the positive emotional energy piece in the for-profit world that is so important. As I said, it's the X factor for leaders. It energizes everything. How are leaders passionately talking about what's possible and engaging everyone in these very productive, conversations and actions to march in that direction to create that value? That's what's so important about positive emotional energy and leadership. And then that just infuses out into the rest of the organization. Now, it can't be false positivity. You can't come in as a leader and stump speech your way into getting everybody energized. We create the environment from which everybody creates value. And a big part of that is how we show up as a leader. So the environment's really important. It just can't be showing up and having a good attitude every day. We have to have that good attitude, especially in bad times, but we have to get the environment right. And there's a lot that goes into that. And then the relationship piece of it, I think about this in the for-profit context. What are we doing, rituals and other things as a company to really encourage strengthening relationships between the team members? So important that you do that. And when you get this right across the board, and it's not just the team members within the company, it's going to be the suppliers, the customers, the communities that you engage with. So important to get that right. And the reason for that, one, it's the right thing to do, and it's just incredible. We are all on this journey of figuring out how to create value in the world, and we want to be there together, supporting, developing each other appropriately. Not like a lot of companies in the for-profit world, where it's just very transactional. You show up, I pay you, you do this thing. When we get it right across the board, everybody is so much more productively engaged. And in the companies that I've run, I've started 8 companies from scratch now. I've had some exits. The multiples in my exits were 2 to 3 times what everybody else on average was getting in the space. And I believe it's because we were creating holistic value across the board. People were so much more productively engaged. We got to this value as a company really quickly. And the story to go to the next level was very believable because it was absolutely true. And I always felt like it was ours to lose. And every time I sold a business, an equally, if not better option for me was keeping the business. And I would have been just as happy doing that. In most cases, I think I would have continued to grow it faster than the folks that actually acquired the businesses. So holistic value creation in the for-profit world, incredibly important to get that right. Now let's shift to the nonprofit world. So when I think about it there, it's impact, it's return on donor investment, it's leadership, and it's relationship. So on the material value creation side, there's a real correlation between the impact and the return on donor investment. Because the more impact we're having that our donors would like to see, the more revenue comes in. And it's really important to get that right so we can sustain the nonprofit and have the impact we want to have in the world. Unfortunately, so many nonprofits out there, and I've worked with many, they kind of devolve into, from this amazing idea and how they want to change the world in this one particular area to how can we raise money so we can make payroll? And they don't really have the impact. They're not measuring the things they should be measuring in a way that resonates with the donors that they're trying to, get the support from. So really important to think about that and get it right. We have to have the impact, and it has to be believable, meaningful, if we want to attract the donors. So on the material side, just think about that. It's the return on donor investment and it's the impact and how they fit together. And there's no end to how we can strengthen that. And as a nonprofit, we should be continually increasing the impact that we have in the world so we can grow it. Just like a for-profit business, when we grow, we're healthy. It's really important for so many reasons. And then leadership, it's really the same thing around the positive emotional energy that I described in the for-profit example. And the same thing when it comes to relationships. It's relationships with the communities that we impact, with the donors that we have, with our team members, suppliers, contractors, all of that. Let's make it one amazing value creation journey where we're there together, developing each other and just going off and creating more and more value over time. The part that I think has the most pent up, untapped value creation when you apply the holistic value creation model is within families. And when I look at families and I just kind of break it down simply, you've got financial stability, emotional well-being, and connectedness. So on the financial stability side, this is the material value creation within the family that can always be improved. It's so important to be financially stable and build on that over time so the family can sustain the lifestyle that they want and also survive emergencies. Things always come up. Being able to invest in their kids' education, whatever path that actually takes. So financial stability, really important. And when families intentionally focus on that, you can increase that year over year. I came from a super low income family and kicked out of the house beginning of my senior year in high school. My parents actually saddled me with debt they racked up in my name. So I started kind of negative when I launched into adulthood from a financial standpoint. And I've just focused on creating value with every step. And I call it this value creation cycle where I struggle to get a capability. It builds confidence, self-esteem, all of that. Don't stop there. I use that to create value. And I just keep rinsing and repeating. And it literally started at 6 years old, pulling weeds for 25 cents an hour. I just felt good. This was so cool. And I just kept building on it. So 8 companies later, and I've been able to build multi-generational wealth in just my time here. So it's not about that so much is what I'm saying here when it comes to families and financial stability. It's really about we can, if we're intentional about it, continually increase the strength of that financial stability. Not everybody has to be a multimillionaire. That's not required. I think that the financial piece is really just a tool to apply in the other 2 buckets when it comes to the family. So when it comes to emotional well-being, what does it feel like to be in the family? Same rules apply around positive emotional energy. Scarcest commodity on the planet, supercharges everything else that we do. So what does it feel like to be in the family? And Do all the family members know how they impact that? When I look at working with, different families and especially the kids, I'm always interested in, hey, what are the value creation superpowers that each of the kids have? Is it on the material side? Do they have an interest in business? Is it on the emotional energy side? They love writing, playing music, performing, something along those lines. Could be speaking, leadership, all of that. What about the connectedness side? Do they like pulling, community events together, organizing family events and all of it? But the material value creation is a tool to support the value we create in the emotional energy side and the spiritual or connectedness side. Those are by far the most important together, in my opinion. And I think the reason a lot of folks don't feel great a lot of times from an emotional well-being standpoint is that they're out of balance. They've made money more important. They size themselves up. They measure against others based on the financial piece of it. And they end up being very extrinsically motivated. We should all be intrinsically motivated if we want to feel better. And we focus on creating value and keeping it in balance in those three buckets: material, emotional energy, and spiritual. It really does feel a whole lot better. So this is so important for the families. And I don't just talk about this or think about it. I actually, every day it's front of mind as I'm going through my day. When I make decisions, I'm looking at making these decisions through a value creation lens. It really helps me with that. And at least once a week, I'm sort of deeply reflecting on it. And on top of that, I'm applying it in my businesses that I still operate today. I run personally 3 CEO mastermind groups. I call it Execute Mastermind. And all of the companies in those groups, I limit it to 8 CEOs in each group, are applying the holistic value creation behaviors in their businesses. I'm actually going to start a 4th group next year. And this is really important to me, to be practicing and not just talking about it. When we're on the front lines practicing this stuff, we can keep evolving and getting better and better. And when it comes to the families, I was asked by the board of directors of a company called Dinner Table back in May of this year, 2024, to become their interim CEO. And really kind of starting from scratch, we've been building communities of families raising kids to create value in the world. And I have my own community that I manage, and I develop and coach others that are managing their communities. And it's so cool to be on the front lines with these families, creating more and more intentional value as a family. So leaning and doing this work is incredibly important. And last thing I'll say around the family side of it, I think you can build family legacy from negative, from zero, from wherever you start, you can grow it. And I think about this also as holistic family legacy. So how are we growing the material side of the legacy for the family, more financial stability and certainty in that area? How are we growing the emotional energy value within the family? What does it feel like to be in the family? And what are we doing to grow the connectedness or the spiritual value creation with the family? So when I think about building family legacy, it's holistic family legacy. And I encourage all of the listeners here to think about that. As you make decisions, can you make decisions better through a holistic value creation lens? How's this impacting the material, emotional energy, and spiritual value that's being created? And keep that front of mind daily. It doesn't have to be a constant thought. And then at least once a week, if you can, kind of think about that more deeply. How am I applying the emotional energy, the material, the spiritual value, or connectedness value creation? And am I applying it in balance? And what would be the right balance for me as I go through that? So that's a question I'll leave you with. What is the right balance for you when it comes to holistic value creation?